Hi there.
Hi, nice to see you. How you doing?
Nice to see you. Pretty good.
Good stuff. Welcome.
You're ready, right?
Yes, I'm ready.
Well, first of all, let's say you did such a great job that I totally forgot you that the last time that I saw you was on Interstellar. You really convinced me that much, and even afterwards, knowing that you're actually British, that even surprised me even more.
Right. Oh, thank you.
But portraying someone as important as Martin Luther King, I mean, I'm maybe not obvious, but from Germany. You maybe not obvious, but from the UK. How important to you as a person, as a human being, has that role been, or that to portraying someone as Martin Luther King?
Well, it's been interesting, you know, because of course, when I first came to the film, you think of Dr. King as an American figure. But having made the film, having taken it to places like Germany, I just got back from Lagos, Nigeria, we were in London, we've been all over the place with the film. He's really a world figure because he represents a universal truth, which is peace, which is nonviolence as an effective way to combat prejudice. So yes, for me as an actor to put my culture aside and inhabit Dr. King was a challenge, but I've just been so encouraged to see that this man was someone who is relevant to the world. Not only him, but that movement and how effective the movement was, especially in the Selma campaign.
One thing that I was very, very highly impressed, and the whole time I was looking at your eyes if you were trying to cheat somehow, because I understand in order just to portray Martin Luther King, it was also important just to be pretty much very accurate when it comes to his speeches. So has there been any sort of improvisation, or is it that you had somewhere a board that you could like read from?
Oh gosh, no, there's no boards to be reading from. No, if you're gonna play a part like this, you have got to completely inhabit the human being. There's no margin for error, there's no margin for doing it purely technically. It has to be complete immersion. You know, like you say, I'm British. Some of those speeches, I'm giving them in front of 500 people in Atlanta, you know, where Dr. King is from. You can't fake it. And when Dr. King was giving these speeches, you have that response from the crowd often. And we did that live. You know, we wanted it to feel real. So, you know, I had to be able to, whether it was in a church or whether it was in front of the Capitol building, be able to, you know, capture the spirit of who he was.
I mean, in the beginning, I was even surprised because somebody even said, like, oh, it's not going to be considered for the Oscars. And then, congratulations, you got 2 Oscar nominations, one for the original song, but also, like, one for the Best Picture. But the thing is, like, when I was talking to people about that, I wasn't really so sure if that movie really has a chance as the Best Picture, because then it would be maybe too close to 12 Years a Slave, which also includes black people. So do you think that these days people will ignore that and really see that it's 2 different stories at all, or do you might think that this could be a disadvantage that last year already a very specific American drama has been winning that award? Or do you see, how big do you see like the chances of?
Well, I think it's a real problem that because this is an attitude that really exists. You know, I've heard it a lot. People saying, we had 12 Years a Slave last year. Maybe that's going to make it difficult for Selma this year. Whether Selma goes on to win or not, I don't know. But the fact that that's even in people's mind is troubling to me, because white filmmakers never think of that. You know, if Daniel Day-Lewis wins for Lincoln last year, and then there's another historical drama this year, no one thinks, oh gosh, it was you know, Daniel Day-Lewis won for Lincoln. Could someone else win for JFK? You know, you just never think that. But because it's a black subject matter, it's black leads, there's this feeling of, oh, we gave them a chance last year. Let's leave it for a while before we deal with that guilt again. And I think that's ridiculous. You know, a film should be seen on its own merit. It's one of the problems I face as an artist, is the fact that the idea that I should be, you know, thrown a bone now and again. And, you know, Ava is as good a director as I've ever worked with. You know, I put in just as much work as any actor I know. And so to get to the point whereby we're not even thinking that way is going to be a wonderful thing.
Well, maybe you can sell it that way. Yeah, of course, like 12 Years a Slave, but Brad Pitt was involved. Right. And Brad Pitt was also involved in that one, production-wise. Maybe that might help.
But still, like, you know, a film should be seen on its own merits. Do you know what I mean? Dr. King is one of the most influential world figures of the 20th century, the only man to have a holiday named after him in America in the 20th century. Selma is the best reviewed film of the year, officially. You know, so I think there are so many things going for the film. It's doing very well at the box office. It's also transcending this thing which 12 Years a Slave did and The Butler did, which is that they're doing well domestically and, you know, doing well abroad. I mean, we're just starting our European and world rollout of the film, but it's looking good. And I just hope that, you know, films like this will continue to do well so that, you know, those attitudes just go away.
Coming back to the character of Martin Luther King, what are the things that you personally really learn about him? Because like two things that popped up to me was like, I never really got like who Mahalia Jackson was. I knew that she was a singer, but I didn't even know that she was so important to someone like Martin Luther King that he would call her in the middle of the night and she would get up and sing the gospel to him. These are some of the things that I learned from him, which I hadn't known before. How about you? What has been like the most impressive thing where you were like, oh, I didn't know?
Well, exactly what you say. I mean, I think the temptation when you have a figure like Dr. King is to just think of him. He did not do this on his own. He needed a lot of support. He was a leader of leaders. You know, he surrounded himself with great minds, people who were like-minded, but also people who were sometimes not like-minded. He wanted different perspectives. And of course, he needed friends like Mahalia Jackson. He needed Harry Belafonte, who not only supported him as a friend, but financially as well. There were all these people around him who helped him achieve what he did. And actually, he was someone who was very uncomfortable with being seen as the leader, but he was aware of his gift for being able to talk to people, being able to talk to the press, being able to talk to presidents. You know, he had that very unique gift of being able to you know, go through these different spheres of life and articulate, you know, he was basically a voice for the voiceless. And so, you know, one of the surprising things I did find is the fact of how deep that support for him indeed was.
And again, about like the preparation, the way that he talked, what made it so specific or so special? Because he had a very special way of saying things, which people say has to do with the fact that he was raised like in a church community, and that's kind of a gospel that he was promoting most of the time. But how was it for you? How was your approach towards that specific way of speaking?
Yeah, I mean, and people have often said to me, you know, you're British, how did you, or how could you even think that you would get close to playing someone like Dr. King? I would argue that even if you're American, you know, this guy was so specific in the way he spoke that you'd still have work to do. And yes, there was an influence from the preaching side of him, but also he was an intellectual. Also, he had studied in Boston. All of these things sort of influenced the way he spoke, and no one quite spoke like him. So we had to sort of break it down, deconstruct his accent, the way he spoke, the way he moved, but also what was going on inside him to make him talk that way, to make him move you that way. And then we just had to hope that within the context of a film, people would feel the same thing.
Well, then let me finish this one by saying, thank you, Martin. That's a great movie.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you, my friend.
You too. The thing is, like, I was kind of, to be honest, the more and more closer this interview came, the more I became nervous because I really didn't know like how to approach it, like taking like really like straight serious or just coming in with a joke saying like, hey, so do you really think this movie is going to be successful? I mean, it has no vampires. It's not about Chinese, not about terrorism. Who do you really think is going to be interested to see such a movie? Right. Although it's good, but who do you think is interested to see this kind of movie?
Oh, so you decided to go with that question?
Yeah, you know, now that I came up with it.
Got it. I think anyone who believes in justice and dignity is interested in seeing Selma. And it's about freedom fighters. It's about people who, you know, risked everything to live as free human beings. And so it happened 50 years ago, but there's so many echoes through history where it's applicable now, both in the United States and other parts of the world. So, you know, I think people are going to be surprised at the fact that it's a bit of a thrill ride through history. It's not kind of one of these, it feels medicinal, it feels like spinach or something that you have to watch. I think it has some texture to it, some life to it, and yeah, I hope people enjoy it.
The thing is, like this morning, actually, really this morning, I met my neighbor. I mean, she's black. She's from America. She lived there with her wife, which is blonde and white. And I asked her, like, how important to her is actually the Black History Month, something like that. And it was very interesting just to have her opinion, because me being German, asking someone who's like from the States, of course, it's a different thing. And she was like, ever since she's been living here in Germany, it hasn't been as important. But she said back in the States, it was really important, especially when she was in college, when she was fighting about having a day off when it came to like the Martin Luther King Day. But at the same time, she also said like it's kind of difficult because she feels like these days, it really feels that with these kind of events, it always seems that it's always to talk specifically about stereotypes, and in order, and it brings rather people together, really rather divides them. So when it comes to a movie like Selma, because I feel like some people might be like, why should I watch it? I mean, it's just about black people. I'm not black, so why should I see it? Would you agree that sometimes it's kind of tricky just to talk about these kind of issues, as it's difficult to talk about having a black president, and some people wouldn't even blame him that racism came back up, something like that. So I understand it must be very difficult just to communicate those kind of projects, especially like us in the States.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think the bottom line is it just depends on your worldview. I mean, if you're a white person and you believe that you're the center of the universe, then you don't need to watch anything else. If you're a white person who's progressive and open and understands that you share the world with other people, then you probably want to understand their stories. So it's just about perspective. If you're a black person and you believe you're the center of the universe, then you're not going to see black movies. If you believe that you share the world with other people, then you use film as a window to the world. I watch Iranian films, I watch Russian films, I watch German films, I watch films about all kinds of people. And so it really just depends on where you are as an evolved human being. And film can be used to facilitate a broader array of thoughts. And so, yeah, it's difficult sometimes to see things that are uncomfortable historically in the present day, but it's about moving ourselves forward as people. And so, yeah, that's what we try to do in Selma.
Well, also, I was very grateful that, because, of course, like I knew stuff about Martin Luther King, but I was very surprised just to see also like about the struggles that not only he had like with the society in general, but also like within the black community.
Sure.
Because not everybody agreed with him. And I was also very surprised to have characters like Malcolm X showing up in this one, or even like the support of Mahalia Jackson, which I wasn't really aware of how close these people are. How important was it for you just to show also like some other sides of Martin Luther King, and how did you get all that info?
Sure. I mean, well, you know, it's definitely there in the research when you research civil rights history and the movement. But in general, we just wanted to make sure that people knew that King didn't stand alone and that everyone didn't agree with him. I think that's one of the myths of this era, is that King was the leader and he was the ultimate leader and everyone followed behind, and that's not really how it was. He was one of many brilliant people. He was the most charismatic. He was the most influential, but he was one of many, you know, great minds during that time. They were all trying to figure out how to attack this problem of oppression and racism. And so we wanted to show that array of people. And then also I think it is fascinating that you have these, you know, huge giants of culture, whether it's Mahalia Jackson or Malcolm X, crossing paths with him during this time. You know, it's interesting to think, you know, what they passed to each other and how they added up to one sum total, as opposed to just being alone. The other thing is that everyone didn't agree with him. You know what I mean? Black people are not a monolith. We don't all think the same way, even though some people think we do. For as many different people are in the room, as many different ideas that you have about how to do something. And so that was all ideas that we tried to put into Selma and get some of that stuff across.
And how was it like in the end, also like working with like very powerful people? Although that she is displayed as a character in the movie, we're talking about Oprah Winfrey, who is fighting to get a vote, but in real life she's huge.
In real life she's huge,
so
yes.
What is it like working with Oprah, also like with a producer like Brad Pitt, who also has kind of an influence? Was there any moment where you were kind of afraid or scared of that kind of influence, or were you also like grateful and it was actually pretty easy going?
Well, you know, I was grateful for it because, you know, Oprah's whole order of business was to make sure that I was protected in my vision of the story. So she was the one that was like, you know, blocking and tackling for me, making sure that I always had everything that I needed. So she was a wonderful, wonderful woman, and it's become a friend and a sister to me, and she's really funny and silly and all of the great things that you want someone to be when you're hanging out with them. But she's a very serious actress. I had a great time directing her, and just was so grateful that she was my producer too.
And when it comes to something like Brad Pitt, is like, oh, here's the check, do whatever you want, or did he also come in and say like, hey, I got some kind of ideas?
Brad Pitt, it was more his company that was involved than him personally. Plan B, yeah. So they were on the scene quite a bit.
All right. Although that I heard that you don't really give so much about prizes, I still wish you all the luck that you need for the
Thank
Oscars.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the movie, and it was very inspirational.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.